The bright lights of the Boston Academy of Arts auditorium focused on 7-year-old Ava, as she stood proudly on the stage clutching her oversized canvas. "This is my family," she said in her sweet clear voice, pointing to the projector screen behind her. The image that appeared was a colorful crayon drawing of two women in white wedding dresses, holding hands with a little girl between them labeled Mommy Harley, Mama Kimberly, and Me Ava. Gasps filled the room like a sudden storm. The elite audience of Boston's upper class turned their heads toward the Harrington family section. Victoria Harrington, the matriarch, gripped her pearl necklace, her face draining of color, while Edward Harrington, the aspiring senator, sat rigid, his jaw clenched in silent rage. Harley Harrington felt the ground shift beneath her feet, her pulse thundering in her ears as the secret she had guarded for years to safeguard her family's impeccable image was now on full display for everyone to judge. Kimberly, her wife, reached for her hand under the program booklet, squeezing it with trembling fingers, but Harley could not tear her eyes from the stage. Ava continued to beam, oblivious to the chaos, waving at them excitedly. The principal tried to regain control, but her words were drowned out by the rising buzz. Phones lit up everywhere. The moment was being captured and would spread fast. Victoria stood abruptly, her chair scraping loudly. She whispered to Edward, "We have to fix this immediately." Harley rose, her legs shaky as she navigated the aisle to the stage, her mind racing through the years of careful planning and painful compromises that had led to this moment. The inner turmoil that had become her constant companion surged forward, the love for her wife and daughter clashing with the deep-rooted sense of duty to her family name. She had always known the risk, but the reality of it happening in such a public forum was devastating. As she reached the stage, Ava jumped into her arms. "Mommy, did you see my painting? I worked so hard on it." Harley hugged her tight, fighting back tears. "Yes, baby, it is beautiful." But Victoria was close behind, her voice low and cutting. "Harley, this is unacceptable. You have put everything at risk." Edward joined them, his presence commanding. "Even in crisis, we will discuss this at home, but for now we need to contain it." The family was quickly escorted to a side room, the air thick with tension. Kimberly joined them, carrying Ava's backpack, her face pale but resolute. The little girl, sensing the mood, asked, "Why is everyone upset? Is it because I drew our family?" Harley knelt down to her level. "No, sweetheart, you did nothing wrong. You told the truth. And that is always good." But in her heart, Harley knew the truth came with a price she had been paying for years. And now the bill was due in full. The flashback to how it all started played in her mind the night she met Kimberly at the annual Harrington Charity Ball. Kimberly was there as a featured artist, her paintings capturing the beauty of everyday love in ways that resonated deeply with Harley. Their first conversation lasted hours, and by the end of the evening Harley knew she had found someone who saw the real her beyond the expectations. Their love grew in secret dates that felt like stolen moments of freedom. Kimberly was patient, never pushing, but always there with quiet support. When Harley proposed on a quiet beach in Cape Cod, they both understood the marriage would remain private for the sake of the family. The small ceremony, with only two trusted friends, was filled with joy, but also the shadow of what they were giving up. Then Ava arrived through a surrogate. The joy was overwhelming, yet the fear was immediate. When Victoria discovered the truth through a misplaced family photo, the confrontation in the Beacon Hill mansion was brutal. "You cannot do this to us, Harley," her mother had screamed. "The scandal will destroy your father's Senate campaign. The firm will lose clients. Our entire world will turn against us." Edward had been colder. "You will present as a single mother, or you will be cut off completely. No inheritance, no role in the firm, no support." Harley had spent sleepless nights weighing the love for Kimberly and the new baby against the loyalty to the family that had shaped her life. In the end, she chose the charade to protect them all. Kimberly became the roommate in public, the nanny at family events. The price was immediate. Harley's heart ached every time she had to deny their bond. The guilt ate at her during quiet nights when Kimberly would turn away, hurt but understanding. The social prejudice was constant at the firm. Colleagues would comment on how brave she was as a single mother or suggest suitable men for her to date to improve her image. Victoria arranged blind dates that Harley attended to keep up appearances, each one a betrayal of the woman she loved. Yet every time she came home to Kimberly and Ava, the love reminded her why she endured it. The moral dilemma tore at her daily: was protecting the family legacy worth erasing the truth of her life? Now in the backstage room, the consequences unfolded in real time. Victoria paced the small space, her voice rising slightly. "We have worked too hard for this. Edward cannot afford this kind of scandal right now. The donors will pull out." Edward nodded, his eyes fixed on Harley. "You knew the rules and you let this happen." Harley stood her ground for the first time in years, her voice steady but filled with the weight of years of silence. Mother, father, this is who I am, this is my family, and I cannot keep pretending forever. Kimberly stepped forward, her arm around Ava. We have done everything you asked, but Ava is growing up, and she deserves to live without shame. The confrontation highlighted the deep rifts the years of forced secrecy had created. Harley felt the full cost of her choices, the isolation, the constant fear, the way it had strained her bond with Kimberly to the breaking point. Yet in that moment, holding Ava, she knew the awakening had begun. The decision to hide had protected the image, but at the expense of their souls. The room fell into heavy silence as the reality sank in. The facade was shattered, and the road ahead would demand choices none of them were ready for. But Harley knew she could no longer pay the price alone. Harley knew she could no longer pay the price alone as the car ride home from the auditorium stretched in tense silence. Ava had fallen asleep in her car seat, exhausted from the excitement, but the adults were wide awake with the weight of what had just happened. Kimberly sat in the passenger seat, staring out the window, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Victoria and Edward followed in their own car, no doubt already calling their lawyers and public relations team to mitigate the damage. Harley gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles white. The inner conflict that had defined her life now demanded resolution. She glanced at Kimberly, the woman who had stood by her through every denial, every awkward family dinner. The love was still there, but so was the resentment that had built over the years of being erased. When they reached their brownstone in Beacon Hill, the routine of the hidden life felt hollow. Harley carried Ava inside, tucking her into bed with a kiss and a whispered promise that everything would be okay. Downstairs, Kimberly waited in the living room, the painting Ava had made propped against the couch like an accusation. We cannot keep doing this, Harley, she said, her voice low but firm. Ava is asking questions and I am tired of being the invisible wife. Harley sat down, the exhaustion from the evening mixing with the guilt she had carried since the ultimatum 9 years ago. She remembered the day after Ava's birth when her parents had arrived at the hospital expecting to see their granddaughter but demanding the charade begin immediately. Kimberly had held the baby while Harley lied to the nurses about her relationship status, the first of many lies that chipped away at their happiness. The family pressure had been relentless, Victoria calling weekly to remind her of the stakes. Edward's Senate run depended on the perfect family narrative, no room for controversy. The betrayal had come early when Harley's sister had learned the truth and used it as leverage for a bigger share in the family trust, threatening to tell their parents unless Harley stepped aside on a promotion at the firm. Harley had given in. The decision haunted her, but she told herself it was for Ava. Social prejudice surrounded them at school events where other mothers whispered about the single mom with the live-in friend, or at church where the pastor preached traditional values while Harley sat with Kimberly a few rows apart. The moral dilemmas piled up, each choice a trade-off between truth and security. Kimberly had sacrificed her own art career to stay home and raise Ava in the shadows, never complaining, but Harley saw the toll in the way her eyes lost their spark during family gatherings. The price was not just emotional, it was the slow erosion of their bond, the nights when arguments about the secrecy ended in tears instead of closeness. That night after the gala, Harley and Kimberly talked for hours, the conversation long overdue. Harley admitted the fear that had driven her decisions, the terror of losing the only world she had known. Kimberly shared the pain of watching Harley choose the family image over their marriage time and again. Yet the love remained a quiet force that had kept them together through it all. As dawn broke, they held each other, the decision forming to face whatever came next together. The next day the media calls began, local papers and social media buzzing with the story of the Harrington daughter and her secret wife. Victoria called demanding a family meeting at the mansion, the tone leaving no room for refusal. Harley agreed, but this time she would not go alone. Kimberly would stand beside her as her wife. The inner awakening was happening. The years of hiding had protected the legacy, but at what cost to the people she loved most? The confrontation at the mansion would test every choice she had made, the betrayal from within the family, the pressure from society, the moral question of whether the ends justified the means. Harley knew the road ahead would be painful, but for the first time, she felt ready to pay the price for truth rather than for silence. The confrontation at the mansion would test every choice she had made as Harley and Kimberly pulled up to the Grand Harrington estate the next afternoon. Ava stayed with a trusted friend. The adults needed space to face the storm. Victoria greeted them at the door, her expression a mix of anger and disappointment, the kind that had always made Harley feel small. Edward waited in the study, the room filled with portraits of ancestors who had built the family empire on tradition and reputation. The The meeting started with accusations, Victoria pacing, as she listed the damage the viral video had caused, donors pulling out calls from the party questioning Edward's viability. Harley listened, the inner conflict raging, but this time she refused to shrink. "This is not just about the image, Mother," she said. "This is about my life, my family." Kimberly stood beside her, silent but strong, her presence a reminder of the years she had been pushed to the sidelines. The conversation turned to the past, the ultimatum that had forced the secrecy. Edward reminded them of the agreement, the one that had kept the family intact. Harley countered with the cost, the years of lies that had nearly broken her marriage, the way Ava was learning to hide parts of herself, already asking why she could not call both women mom in public. The moral dilemmas were laid bare. Was protecting the family name worth the emotional harm to a child? Victoria revealed a betrayal she had suspected for months, and had a private investigator confirm the depth of the relationship, the report now in Edward's hands. The shock hit Harley hard. The family she had sacrificed for had been spying, the trust shattered. Yet it fueled her resolve. The social prejudice was not just external, it lived inside the walls of the home that was supposed to be safe. Kimberly spoke up for the first time, her voice steady. "I have given up so much to protect your image, but I will not let Ava grow up thinking our love is something to be ashamed of." The arguments escalated, Edward threatening to disinherit Harley completely if she did not issue a public statement denying the marriage as a misunderstanding. Harley faced the ultimate trade-off, the legacy or her authenticity. In that moment, the inner awakening solidified. She chose love. "No, Father," she said, "I will not lie anymore." The room fell silent, the weight of the decision hanging heavy. Victoria cried real tears for the first time in years, the facade cracking to reveal the fear beneath the ambition. The meeting ended without resolution, but the lines were drawn. On the drive home, Harley and Kimberly talked about the future, the possible loss of financial security, the social ostracism, the strength they would need. The price was already being paid in the form of family division, but the freedom felt worth it. Over the following weeks, the tension at work mounted, colleagues avoiding Harley, the partners questioning her judgment. Ava noticed the change, asking more questions about why Grandma was mad. Harley explained as best she could the truth in age-appropriate terms, the importance of being honest. Kimberly supported her every step, the bond strengthening through the crisis. The years of hiding had taught them the cost of silence, now they were learning the cost of truth, but together they faced it, the moral choice clear, even if the consequences were not. Together they faced it, the moral choice clear, even if the consequences were not. As the weeks turned into a month of public scrutiny, the story had spread beyond Boston. National outlets picking up the tale of the senator hopeful's daughter and her hidden marriage. Harley faced daily battles at the firm, whispers in the hallways, meetings where her contributions were suddenly overlooked. The social prejudice was blatant, invitations to events withdrawn, old friends distancing themselves. Yet in the quiet moments at home with Kimberly and Ava, the family they had built felt stronger than ever. Harley reflected on the decisions that had led here, the trade-offs that seemed necessary at the time but now revealed as costly mistakes. The inner conflict had evolved from guilt to determination, the awakening complete. She would no longer apologize for who she was. A close call came when a cousin who had known the secret for years leaked additional details to the press in exchange for a larger inheritance share, the betrayal cutting deep. Harley confronted the cousin, the conversation revealing the family's internal fractures, the same pressure that had forced her secrecy now turning family against family. Kimberly bore the brunt of the media attention, her art studio flooded with calls, some supportive but many cruel. The moral dilemmas extended to Ava, who came home from school one day in tears after a classmate repeated a parent's comment about unnatural families. Harley and Kimberly held her the decision to transfer her to a more accepting school, a small but necessary step. The price of the past choices was evident in Ava's confusion, but the openness was healing the wounds. Victoria reached out in a surprising move, inviting them for a private lunch, the conversation tense but honest, the mother admitting her own fears had blinded her to her daughter's happiness. Edward remained distant, his campaign suffering, the polls dropping. The moral question for him was legacy versus love. Harley made a key decision to step back from the firm, the move a public statement of her priorities, the loss of income a tangible cost, but the gain in peace immeasurable. Kimberly returned to her art, the passion rekindled now that the shadows were lifting. The relationship deepened, the years of strain giving way to renewed intimacy, the romantic moments they had denied themselves now cherished. Yet the pressure continued, the family business board questioning Harley's role, the social circle shrinking. The escalating tension built as Edward's team suggested a family photo op to repair the image. Harley refused the final stand against the old ways. The inner monologue during those days centered on the right and wrong. The family had demanded sacrifice, but at what point did the demand become the greater wrong? The awakening brought clarity. The love for Kimberly and Ava was the true legacy worth preserving. The story was far from over, but the foundation was shifting from concealment to acceptance. The choices ahead would define not just their future, but the kind of world they wanted for their daughter. The choices ahead would define not just their future, but the kind of world they wanted for their daughter. As another school event approached, the annual art showcase where Ava was again selected to present, Harley and Kimberly debated attending. The risk of further exposure weighed against supporting their child. In the end, they went. The decision a symbol of their new path. The auditorium filled with familiar faces, some supportive, some judgmental, the tension palpable. Ava took the stage this time with a new drawing, not of brides but of a family standing together, the label reading "My Mom's and Me Strong." The crowd reacted with a mix of applause and murmurs, the previous scandal still fresh. Harley felt the eyes on her but stood tall, the inner strength from the past months carrying her through. Victoria and Edward were absent, the rift still deep, but a note from Victoria wished Ava well, the small gesture a crack in the wall. Backstage, the principal offered congratulations, the event passing without incident, but the undercurrent remained. On the way home, Ava asked if Grandma and Grandpa would ever come to her shows again. Harley answered honestly, "We hope so, but some things take time." The conversation opened the door to deeper talks about prejudice and encouraged the lessons Harley wished she had learned earlier. Kimberly shared stories from her own childhood, the struggles that had made her resilient. The couple united in their commitment to raise Ava without the same burdens. The moral dilemmas continued as the firm offered Harley a return if she kept a low profile. The temptation was there, the security appealing, but the cost too high. She declined the decision final, the price of independence, the loss of the family safety net, but the reward authenticity. The betrayal from the cousin lingered, a lawsuit followed, but Harley chose not to pursue it, the energy better spent on healing. The family division deepened when Edward announced his withdrawal from the Senate race, the scandal cited as a factor. The guilt Harley felt was real, but she knew the root was the refusal to accept change. Victoria visited unannounced, the conversation turning to reconciliation, the mother admitting the prejudice she had upheld had hurt more than helped. The moment was not full forgiveness but a start, the trade-off of time and effort for possible bridge building. Harley and Kimberly celebrated their anniversary in private, the romantic evening a reminder of why they had fought so hard, the happiness they had reclaimed. The tension was not gone, but the direction was clear. The awakening had led to actions that honored their truth. As the months passed, the public interest faded, the private life blossomed, the price paid in pain now yielding growth. The decisions of the past, lessons for the future. The decisions of the past, lessons for the future. As Harley stood in the park watching Ava play with Kimberly, the sun setting in a golden glow. The months since the stage reveal had transformed their lives, the initial chaos giving way to a new normal built on honesty. Victoria had begun tentative visits, the relationship mending slowly. Edward remained distant, but the door was not closed. The firm had replaced Harley, but her new path in a smaller practice focused on family law felt right, the work aligning with her values. Kimberly's art was gaining recognition, the freedom allowing her creativity to flourish. Ava thrived in her new school, the innocence preserved but strengthened by the truth. The family they had chosen was whole, the one they were born into evolving. Harley reflected on the journey, the inner conflicts that had nearly broken her, the pressures that had tested every bond, the moral choices between loyalty and love, the betrayals, the sacrifices, the awakenings, all led to this moment of peace. Kimberly joined her, the two women sharing a tender embrace, the kind they had once hidden now open and joyful. Ava ran to them, giggling, the three of them, a unit no longer fractured by secrets. The price each had paid was real, the family image lost, the social status diminished, but the gain in authenticity immeasurable. Harley knew the road had been hard but necessary, the decision she made in fear had cost years of happiness, but the courage to change had restored it. The social prejudice still existed, but they faced it together, stronger for the struggle. In the end, the family confrontation, the public exposure, the personal reckonings all pointed to one truth: hiding the love had protected nothing but the illusion, while embracing it had built something real. Victoria sent a card for Ava's birthday, the first step toward full acceptance, the effort required but worth it. Edward watched from afar, the political dreams adjusted but the man perhaps learning. Harley and Kimberly planned a small renewal ceremony, the public affirmation they deserved. Ava drew another picture, this one of the whole family including grandparents. The message clear: love wins. The story of their journey was one of drama and growth, the tensions resolved not by perfection but by choice. As the sun dipped lower, Harley held her family close, the awakening complete, the future bright. Was sacrificing authenticity for family image the right choice, or did it inflict deeper wounds on everyone involved, including the innocent child?